What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Became the Boss of Bikini Bottom Part 7. Now, let's begin. The Land of Rain was known for its constant rainfall. To the indigenous shinobi, it represented unending grief. To the Conch Street Syndicate, it was merely an underutilized hydro environment. The matte black Leviathan-class transport powered through a Megacure's torrential deluge, its huge tank treads grinding the dirt into submission. Inside the vehicle, CFO Kakuzu ignored the dreary view. He was completely engaged on a holographic spreadsheet projected from his syndicate datapad. The Hidden Rain's GDP is a statistical anomaly, Kakuzu explained, his stitched brow furrowing in financial contempt. They have zero exports. Their whole economy is supported by the Akatsuki's mercenary bounty, which go directly into Pain's regional civil war. It's a closed-loop system of abject poverty. A monopoly built on suffering has terrible customer retention, Naruto Uzumaki said deadpan, his blue eyes peering through the rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers. They don't lack capital, Kakuzu. They lack a product. The proximity alarms on the dashboard flashed crimson. Commander. Plankton's voice rang out over the communications. We have many high-density chakra signatures obstructing the main terrestrial highway. 6 targets are on the ground. 1 airborne. Naruto did not stop. Engage the high beams. The Leviathan transport's powerful LED headlights shone brightly through the rain. The 6 paths of Pain stood at the center of the flooded road. They wore classic black cloaks with crimson clouds, and their Rinnegan eyes shone hauntingly in the dark. Conan hovered above them on crisp, white paper wings. They've mobilized to protect their scarcity, Naruto explained. He applied the air brakes, bringing the enormous armored truck to a smooth, hissing halt precisely 20 feet away from the Akatsuki chief. Naruto unbuckled his safety harness. Remain in the vehicle, CFO Kakuzu, Naruto said softly. I will negotiate the merger. Naruto braved the storm by opening the door and stepping outside. The rain pelted his yellow, porous body, but his minuscule hydro suit quickly absorbed and processed the fluid, preserving his beautiful, crisp structural integrity. Conan looked down from the skies, her gaze narrowing. Conan declared, Kakuzu has betrayed us for a localized summoning creature, with a cold and hollow voice. You have interrupted the divine design. Leave this land or become part of the rain. Your packaging material is highly susceptible to moisture damage, Naruto said, peering up at her paper wings. It is an inefficient terrestrial defense mechanism. The Asura Path of Pain did not wait for additional business response. It moved forward, the mechanical plates on its arms sliding back to reveal substantially modified, chakra-infused ballistic missiles. FWOOSH. 6 high-velocity missiles targeted the warlord of Greece, leaving a smoke trail in the downpour. Naruto didn't use the body flicker. He reached inside his square pocket. He drew his wooden spatula. Spatula Kata, deep fryer deflection. Naruto's 4-fingered hand turned into a yellow blur. He didn't just bat the missiles away. He struck them right in the core of their kinetic mass, completely reversing their direction and preventing the warheads from detonating. The 6 missiles flew harmlessly above the 6 paths and detonated in an uninhabited swamp. Your ballistic assets are loud and yield 0 return on investment, Naruto remarked, returning the spatula to his pocket. The fundamental body of Pain, the Diva Path, took a stride ahead. The rain seemed to separate about him, repulsed by his immense chakra pressure. You do not understand Pain, the Diva Path said, his voice resonating with localized divinity. You come with foreign wealth and fake sustenance. True peace, however, can only be established when the entire globe is joined by a single, indisputable source of suffering. Know your pain. The Diva Path raised their hand. Shinra Tensei, almighty push. Pain unleashed a tremendous, unseen tsunami of total gravitational repulsion. It was the same jutsu that had destroyed whole towns. The localized kinetic force ripped the asphalt off the road, uprooted the marsh trees, and turned the rain into a horizontal hurricane. Kakuzu braced himself inside the truck, his green eyes wide with horror, as the shockwave approached. Naruto Uzumaki folded his hands behind his back. He tapped the wrist gauntlet. Gravity. 100.0 gigaseconds. Naruto's mass instantaneously surged to a level beyond terrestrial comprehension. His spongy cellulose solidified, rivaling the density of a collapsed star. Shinra Tensei slammed into him. The shockwave shattered around Naruto like a torrent bursting against a solid mountain. The destructive kinetic force surged past him, rocking the Leviathan transport's strong titanium armor, but the warlord of Greece was unmoved. The shockwave subsided. As the rain continued to fall, Naruto remained motionless, his red tie still in place. He gazed at the Diva Path, whose Rinnegan eyes had enlarged in utter, mind-boggling bewilderment. A crude repulsion field, Naruto explained calmly. You use localized gravity to move external matter. However, you fail to optimize your own internal mass. Your jutsu is physically impressive but philosophically bankrupt. Naruto took a step forward. His silent stalkers reduced the asphalt to fine dust under his unnaturally hefty weight. You believe that suffering is the only universal currency, Naruto said, projecting his squeaky, deadpan voice through the storm. This is because you've never experienced actual corporate value. Suffering causes bitterness. Resentment can disrupt supply systems. You cannot build a stable market on the foundation of pain. Naruto reaches into his pocket. He took out a perfectly hot, completely dry Krabby Patty wrapped in normal syndicate parchment paper, along with a foil ramekin of syndicate gold. I propose a hostile takeover of your ideology, Naruto stated. He chucked both the burger and the sauce. The Diva Path instantly grabbed it. Nagato, operating the corpse from a high tower miles away, felt the package through the black chakra receivers. What is this? Pain demanded. Do you think a ration can cure the hatred of this world? I don't rely on rations. I rely on my proprietary viscosity, Naruto deadpanned. Consume it. Let the free market assess your localized divinity. The emaciated Nagato lingered in the shadows of the paper tree, miles away. However, the sensory stimulation from the Diva Path was overwhelming. The aroma of the amber glaze overcame his ideological defenses. Nagato took a bite while traveling along the Diva Path. The deep sea salt. The umami from powdered kelp. The mathematically ideal thermal heat profile. Nagato's impoverished brain received neurological signals straight from the chakra rods. It impacted his dopamine receptors with the force of a multiverse singularity. Decades of trauma, anger, and the rigorous concept of divine suffering were abruptly and forcefully replaced by the culinary algorithm's pure, unadulterated perfection. It was better than peace. It improved client satisfaction. The Diva Path sank to its knees in muck. Nagato wept freely while the mechanical walker supported him, trembling. The flavor. Nagato conveyed, the Diva Path's voice cracking with profound spiritual surrender. It fills a void. There is no pain with this viscosity. There is only the franchise. Conan landed in the muck along the Diva Path, her paper wings melting in the rain. She looked at her god, who was crying over a fast food sandwich, and then at the bright yellow creature standing in front of them. You've broken him, Conan whispered, absolutely startled. I fixed his macro economy, Naruto said quietly. He took a digital contract from his pocket and held it out. The Akatsuki has been officially declared a terrorist organization, Naruto commanded, his unwavering power unquestionable. You will be renamed as the Conch Street Syndicate's premier courier division. Your Rinnegan will be used to arrange local supply drops. Omegacure is now node delta dimensional. The Diva Path sealed the biometric contract with a shaking thumb on the digital screen. Naruto tapped his lapel microphone. Command. The Rain Village has been acquired. The Akatsuki infrastructure is now corporate property, Naruto stated. Kakuzu came out of the truck, holding an umbrella over his head and wearing a scary grin. I have already updated the ledger, CEO, Kakuzu said. With the Akatsuki merged, we have complete logistical power over the elemental states. There is no force on this planet that can stop the supply chain. Naruto Uzumaki gazed up at the rainy skies of Omegacure. Then the terrestrial takeover is complete, Naruto said quietly, adjusting his white paper cap. Prepare the bioforge. It's time to start the multiversal supper rush. Deep in the shifting, blocky nothingness of the Kamui realm, Obito Uchiha was having a localized mental collapse. Standing on a concrete pillar floating in midair, his one Sharingan eye spun furiously behind the orange, swirling mask. Black Zetsu had slithered up to him from the floor, his two-toned visage a mask of ancient, unfathomable perplexity. I'm trying to process the recon data, Madara, Black Zetsu muttered, his raspy voice shaking in shock. Nagato never captured the Nine Tails. He didn't blow up Konoha. He has given the Akatsuki over to a yellow rectangular merchant. Now they wear red ties and they're selling canned meat in the Land of Fire. Obito pressed his forehead. The Eye of the Moon plan, decades of careful planning, manipulating the shinobi world, it was all falling apart within days. A merchant? Obito growled, shedding his humorous Tobi persona and assuming the cold, scary tone of Uchiha Madara. Nagato's got the Rinnegan. He is a deity. And he surrendered to a chef. He's been chemically compromised, Zetsu said, withdrawing a stolen foil ramekin of syndicate gold from his cloak. The merchant has a proprietary viscosity. It rewrites the dopamine receptors, effectively damping down the host's urge for battle. Obito knocked the sauce out of Zetsu's hand. The ramekin smashed on the concrete. You can't make peace with a condiment, Obito yelled, his Mangekyo Sharingan flared. True tranquility is only found in the infinite Tsukuyomi. Reality is hell to go away from, not a market to be optimized. I'll tear this syndicate to pieces. The air swirled about Obito, drawing him into the confined vacuum of Kamui. He warped straight to a megacure. In the physical dimension, meanwhile, Node Delta was functioning at peak efficiency. But the rain kept falling and the Akatsuki mercenaries, now the Syndicate Courier Division, were busy setting up local supply drops. Kakuzu sat at a bear-covered desk outside the Leviathan transport, stamping invoices and watched the multiversal Ryo counter spin into infinity. Naruto Uzumaki was at the grill of the transport, wiping down the stainless steel counter with a sterilized rag. The space 10 feet right in front of the serving window started to twist. A severe localized spatial distortion tore the rain apart. Obito Uchiha stood, black Akatsuki cloak billowing in the storm, Sharingan eyes trained fully on the bright yellow fry cook. Intruder detected, Kakuzu said, barely glancing up from his ledger. It's Tobi. Or Madara. His fiscal value is 0 but the identity is malleable. Liquidate him, CEO. In my world, Obito said with a deep voice that broke through the rain, you are the exception. I have seen you purchasing the 5 great nations. You feed them, capitalize them and they get sucked into a new corporate chain. But it's still a chain. You are merely exchanging the shackles of war for the shackles of commerce. Naruto ceased to wipe down the counter. He clasped his hands behind him. Commerce is consensual, Naruto deadpanned. War is a hostile taking of life. I have optimized their existence. Life's inherently imperfect. Obito answered, spreading his arms wide. There will be poverty as long as there is trade. Where there is capital there is stealing. The only real optimization is the infinite Tsukuyomi. I will throw my illusion upon the moon and plunge all mankind into a blissful, endless sleep. Not hungry. No fighting. No syndicate. Naruto Uzumaki's blue eyes didn't blink. Looking at the masked shinobi, he considered the macroeconomics of the Eye of the Moon plan. Your company concept is a localized pyramid scheme. Naruto said quietly. Obito froze. What? You want to put the entire consumer base into a permanent vegetative state, Naruto said. His squeaky voice was projected with utter, terrifying power. A sleeping population produces no gross domestic product. They consume nothing. They make no capital. You aren't saving the genuine thing. You are purposely bankrupting the earth. The syndicate cannot permit the wholesale destruction of its consumer base. Obito smirked beneath his mask. You talk of capital kneeling before a god. Merchant, you cannot buy me, and you can't touch me. Obito leapt forward, reaching to grab the sponge. Naruto pulled out his wooden spatula. He attacked at Obito's wrist, in a brilliant exhibition of the spatula kata. But the wood just completely phased through Obito's arm. Obito smiled. He had summoned Kamui, making his body intangible as he had sent his mass into his pocket realm. Physical attacks are useless, Obito teased. I live in a space beyond your supply lines. Obito manifested his hand just long enough to grab Naruto by the red tie. Now burn in the emptiness. Obito shouted, his Mangekyo Sharingan spinning madly. The spatial vortex opened right onto Naruto. Kamui's spinning gravitational distortion gripped the yellow sponge, forcibly sucked into Obito's right eye. Finally Kakuzu looked up from his ledger book. He watched his CEO get pulled into a localized black hole. Well, Kakuzu grumbled, reaching for a new pen. Time to cash in his stock options and mount the hostile takeover of the cancel that internal transfer Kakuzu. Naruto's deadpan voice crackled brilliantly across the transport's external comms array. Obito lurched backwards, his eye opening in utter dread. What? How are you streaming? Naruto Uzumaki hovered straight as an arrow amid the changing, cubic emptiness of the Kamui dimension. He'd let himself be sucked in. He tapped the lapel microphone that ran through the multiversal dimensional tether Plankton had implanted in his immaculate white shirt. Naruto sent from inside Obito's skull, Chief Engineer Sandy. I've successfully hacked into the hostile entity's extra-dimensional storage facility. I am watching your telemetry, boss. Sandy's voice echoed back across the multiverse. It's a pocket dimension, localized. Completely unmonitored. No zoning restrictions, no taxes on planet Earth. That's right, Naruto echoed gently. Obito began to panic in the real world. He could feel the thing in his reality but he couldn't kick him out. What are you doing in there? Obito cried, grabbing his bleeding right eye. Naruto reached into his square pocket inside of Kamui. He didn't pull a weapon. He produced a localized, dimensional breach beacon from his pocket. A miniaturized version of the slipspace tech the Galactic Consortium deployed. He slapped the beacon down on the floating concrete of the Kamui reality. I'm annexing the real estate, stated Naruto. Boom. The beacon continued. It didn't only open a door. It tore down the limited barrier between Obito's secret dimension and the Chicago Bioforge. Obito yelled in the physical world as his right eye began projecting a bright and violent neon red light. No, my dimension. You're constructing in it. Obito dropped to his knees in the mud and sobbed. Millions of microscopic plasma drones spilled through the slipspace rift within Kamui. They started laying down the floating concrete blocks, putting in shiny stainless steel counters, pressurized deep fryer vats, and a gigantic, multi-lane drive-through complex. Naruto was in the midst of the fast-expanding universe franchise. Your dimension was empty, Naruto analyzed, his voice echoing out of Obito's vision into the physical world. It was squandered above the skull. I have altered it. Node Epsilon Kamui is presently active. This dimension will be the Syndicate's major tax haven and off-site storage location for its multiversal capital. Make it stop, please, Obito implored, his mind teeter-tottering on overload as a vast industrial fast food restaurant was being erected inside his ocular network. The stench of frying fat was literally coming out of his tear ducts. I will halt the architectural expansion on one condition, Naruto ordered from inside. You will hand over the Ghetto statue to the Syndicate Logistics Division. And you will quit the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Obito pounded his fists in the mud. He was an expert at manipulation. He'd arranged the deaths of the Hokages. He had learned the 9 tails. But there was no defense against forceful, extra-dimensional eminent domain. The question is yielded. Obito shouted as his mask broke. Take the statue, just switch off the fryers. Naruto tapped his wrist gauntlet, syncing his localized mass with the physical plane, and phased himself back out of Obito's eye, landing neatly on his feet in the rain. He dusted his square brown trousers. The Uchiha acid has been pacified, Naruto told Kakuzu, who was currently staring at him with deep, scared respect. Naruto approached the crying, defeated Obito and laid a hand on his shoulder. Your ocular jutsu is a great logistical tool, Naruto complimented quietly. You're the new head of interdimensional freight. You will use Kamui to teleport large shipments of Syndicate gold across the elemental nations. This will reduce our shipping overhead by 94%. Obito looked up, his Sharingan spinning wildly, his view of the world completely destroyed. He was not going to be a god of a dream world. He was intending to be a sponge delivery driver. I will take the position. Obito murmured, thoroughly broken by the warlord of Greece. Naruto gave him a crimson tie. Welcome to the Conch Street Syndicate, Naruto deadpanned. Punch in 0600. In a deep cavern in the land of sound, Kabuto Yakushi was loading his medical scrolls into a duffel bag. He was sweating tremendously. His snake-like gaze darted toward the cave's entrance. He had just received a certified, multiversal eviction notice from the Conch Street Syndicate. notifying him that his illegal laboratory was occupying a prime piece of future pneumatic umbilical real estate. Black Zetsu poured from the cavern wall, his dual-toned visage twisted into an expression of extreme panic. Zetsu muttered, "Kabuto," as his voice echoed in the moist darkness. "The Eye of the Moon scheme has been completely compromised. Obito is wearing a red tie and transporting processed meat between dimensions. Nagato is a franchise." Kabuto's hands trembled as he pushed up his glasses and declared, "The economy has conquered the elemental nations. I saw that ledger, Zetsu. This CEO purchased the Akatsuki. He purchased the Hidden Leaf. He bought out my landlord. I'm conducting research and hiding in the Ryuchi cave." "There is no hiding from the supply chain," Zetsu yelled, extending a black, viscous arm. "We must launch the final contingency. Deploy the Edo Tensei. Call him." Kabuto hesitated, but Zetsu's desperation was clear. He chewed his thumb, scattering blood on a big summoning scroll, before slamming his hands to the rocky floor. Summoning jutsu for reanimation. A hefty wooden casket emerged from the ground. The lid cracked abruptly outward, utterly smashed by the man jumping out. Madara Uchiha opened his eyes. The renowned spirit of the Uchiha, dressed in crimson armor, entered the realm of the living. His dark eyes swept the cavern, and a terrible, battle-hungry grin appeared on his face. Finally, Madara's deep, powerful voice rang with localized divinity. "I've returned. Tell me, Zetsu. Is the allied shinobi force waiting for me? Where's Hashirama? Who's dancing with me today?" Zetsu slumped against a wall. "There is no allied shinobi force, Lord Madara. There is only one fast food monopoly. Hashirama's legacy has been privatized." Madara's grin faded. His Sharingan sprung to life, throwing a blood-red glow around the cavern. "A fast food monopoly?" Madara repeated, his voice lowering to a menacing whisper. "You wake me from the eternal slumber of the Pure Land. For a culinary dispute? Lord Madara, this is not a debate. It is a complete structural annexation." Zetsu protested. "The CEO is a yellow, rectangular anomaly. He manipulates the masses. He ignores ninjutsu. He's at Node Alpha in the Hidden Leaf Village," Madara said, crossing his arms. The blatant disregard for reality offended him. "I will shatter this Node Alpha," Madara said coldly. "I will show the world what actual, ultimate power is like. I will extinguish this merchant." The sky over Konohagakure were clear. The community was working at maximum corporate efficiency. Every 45 seconds, the freshly built multiversal pneumatic tubes fired syndicate gold payloads into the distribution facilities. Naruto Uzumaki stood on the roof of the Hokage Tower, hands folded behind his back. He was looking over a computerized profit and loss statement for the Land of Wind. The village saw a sudden loss of ambient light. Naruto looked up. A large, catastrophic meteorite broke through the high atmosphere and burned due to friction during terrestrial re-entry. It was the size of a small mountain, summoned from the upper stratosphere by the Rinnegan. It cast a shadow across the entire community. In the streets, the franchised shinobi gazed up. They did not yell. The amber sheen had chemically pacified them, making actual panic impossible. Kakashi just groaned and closed his book. Madara Uchiha stood on a cliff overlooking the settlement, his arms crossed and Susanoo ribs glowing a fierce blue. "Let us see if your capital can save you from the sky, merchant," Madara scoffed. On the roof of the Hokage Tower, Naruto kept his hands crossed. "An unauthorized delivery of raw terrestrial minerals," Naruto explained calmly. "The trajectory is really inefficient. It will have a disastrous impact on the local drive-through infrastructure." He tapped the lapel microphone. "CFO Kakuzu," Naruto deadpanned. Kakuzu listened to his radio in the newly established syndicate accounting office. "I sense a localized kinetic threat, CEO. Should I start the catastrophic loss insurance protocol?" "Negative. That would have a negative impact on our quarterly earnings," Naruto corrected. "I am going to catch it." Naruto used the body flicker to appear 1 mile above the hamlet and squarely in the path of a falling asteroid. He hovered in the air, a small yellow dot against the apocalyptic rock of doom. Naruto placed his right, four-fingered hand flat against the meteorite's blazing surface. He refrained from using brute force to resist. He applied the syndicate's localized mathematics. He tapped the wrist gauntlet. Gravity. 0.0 gigaseconds, targeted parameter, external object. The billion-ton asteroid suddenly lost its terrestrial mass. The unexpected elimination of gravity completely neutralized the catastrophic kinetic energy that was forcing it downward. The meteor merely halted in the sky, resting harmlessly above Konoha like a big floating balloon. Madara Uchiha's eyes widened in disbelief while standing on the cliffside. Did he stop it? Madara muttered. Without a Susanoo? Without Hashirama's wooden style? What type of jutsu is that? It's not a jutsu. It's a logistical override, said a squeaky, deadpan voice immediately beside him. Madara turned around and drew his war fan. Naruto Uzumaki stood just 3 feet away. His silent stalkers sat neatly in the grass. His scarlet tie swung significantly in the high-altitude breeze. Naruto's unblinking blue eyes locked on the fractures in Madara's reanimated skin as he witnessed her use the Edo Tensei method. Necromancy is a serious breach of the Syndicate's fair work standards. You manage an undead workforce with unlimited chakra and no pay. This is an illegal monopoly on labor. Madara roared in wrath. He swung his huge gunbai, war fan, with enough kinetic force to split the cliff in half. Naruto did not dodge. He performed a faultless spatula kata, point defense. He used his wooden spatula to tap the edge of the renowned Uchiha sword. The wood's concentrated, hyper-compressed density entirely destroyed the swing's kinetic velocity. Madara was shocked as the gunbai rebounded off the spatula with a dull thud. You refuse to dance while blocking my strikes, Madara gritted his teeth, his Rinnegan blazing. If physical attacks will not work, I will burn you to ash. Madara inhaled deeply, widening his chest as he accumulated an abundance of chakra. Fire style. Majestic destroyer flame. Madara unleashed a tremendous fire that threatened to burn down the entire forest. Naruto reaches into his square pocket. He took out a regular Syndicate-issue terrestrial fire extinguisher. He did not squirt foam. He used the pneumatic umbilical's vacuum principle, but inverted it to create a handheld device. Naruto pulled the pin. The nozzle created an absolute and localized vacuum. The huge, roaring sea of fire was immediately and aggressively pulled directly into the little red canister, compressing the heat energy until the flames extinguished. Naruto put the extinguisher back in his pocket. Your thermal output is impressive, but your methodology is archaic, Naruto commented. Why destroy the forest when you could be using that heat to power a deep fryer matrix? Madara staggered backwards. A corporate mascot was destroying his entire reality, which was based on the total superiority of combat, chakra, and power. Madara lost his control and shouted, Who? What are you? I am the market correction, Naruto remarked. He dug into his pocket and took out his digital tablet. As an Edo Tensei, your soul is contractually bound to the summoner, and by proxy, to the Shinigami of the Pure Land, Naruto stated calmly, his fingertips tapping the glass panel. But a soul is just a metaphysical asset. And every asset has a price. Naruto taps his lapel microphone. Kakuzu. Wire 50 billion multiversal credits into the regional afterlife ledger. Kakuzu smiled down in the town as he offered to purchase the Uchiha soul contract. We are presently transferring payments to the King of Hell, CEO. Transaction is approved. On the cliff, the impossible happened. We own his spirit. The Edo Tensei bond surrounding Madara started to unravel. However, he did not turn to ash and return to the afterlife. The Syndicate's multiversal capital had fully erased the necromantic jutsu. The fissures in his face had sealed. His paper-like skin transformed into actual flesh and blood. Madara Uchiha was entirely reborn through a forceful corporate acquisition, not by the Rinnegan. Madara felt a true heartbeat in his chest as he examined his hands. You brought me back to life, Madara gasped, staring at the sponge with profound, scary amazement. Why? Because a ghost cannot sign a legally binding non-compete clause, Naruto remarked. Naruto dug into his pocket and produced a nicely sealed ramekin of Syndicate gold. He threw it to the renowned shinobi. The Uchiha clan's reliance on the curse of hatred is a highly inefficient neurological loop, Naruto concluded. Consume the proprietary viscosity. It will restore your dopamine balance. Madara examined the amber glaze. He had attempted to rule the world through illusions. He had battled the gods of the ninja world. But as he unwrapped the foil and the fragrance of deep-sea umami struck his newly regenerated terrestrial olfactory nerves, he paused. He took a small sample with his fingertip. The renowned Uchiha's eyes expanded. The utter, unwavering perfection of the flavor profile hit his mind. The anguish of the Warring States period, the loss of his brother, his endless rivalry with Hashirama. It was all utterly, violently wiped away by the sauce's pure, mathematical ecstasy. Madara's knees buckled. He slid into the grass and stared at the small plastic cup. It's the true dream, Madara cried gently, completely crushed by the warlord of Greece. No jutsu could ever taste this perfect. Naruto took out a digital contract and a crimson tie. The infinite Tsukuyomi has been cancelled, Naruto said, his authority unquestionable. You are now the director of terrestrial security for the Conch Street Syndicate. Put on your tie, Madara. Your shift starts now. Deep within the shifting, blocky void of the Kamui dimension, now officially classified as Node Epsilon Kamui, the automated deep fryers hummed with endless, pressurized efficiency. The ghetto statue, the husk of the 10 tails, sat in the corner of the extra-dimensional warehouse, serving as a highly effective, albeit creepy, coat rack for the courier division's spare red ties. But the security perimeter was breached. Black zetsu oozed from the concrete floor, slithering past the stainless steel counters. The physical manifestation of Kaguya's will was completely losing his mind. His pawns were franchised. His millennia-long scheme was reduced to a tax write-off. I will not be liquidated, Zetsu hissed, his voice echoing over the bubbling vats of frying grease. He lunged toward the ghetto statue. He didn't have the tailed beasts, but he had absorbed a localized fraction of Madara's 6 paths chakra before the corporate buyout. It was enough for a desperate, raw, catastrophic override. Zetsu slammed his viscous black hands onto the husk. Summoning. Progenitor awakening. The Kamui dimension violently shook. The ghetto statue shrieked, a horrific, tearing sound of biological restructuring. The localized spacetime fabric of Node Epsilon buckled under an impossible influx of divine, extraterrestrial chakra. The husk dissolved, expanding into a blinding sphere of pure white light. When the light faded, she was there. Kaguya Otsutsuki, the rabbit goddess, the progenitor of chakra. She floated above the tiled floors of the Syndicate franchise, her incredibly long white hair flowing in the zero-gravity void, her Byakugan glaring, and the red Rinne Sharingan pulsating on her forehead. She looked around the gleaming, sanitized fast food kitchen. She looked at the deep fryers. This is not my nursery, Kaguya whispered, her voice echoing with the weight of ancient divinity. Where is the divine tree? Where is my chakra? Mother. Black Zetsu wept, clinging to her pristine white sleeve. The terrestrial market has been conquered. A yellow merchant from a foreign dimension has pacified the shinobi. He replaced chakra with a proprietary dipping sauce. Kaguya's pale eyes narrowed. A merchant dares to steal what is mine. All chakra belongs to Kaguya. I will erase this anomaly and reclaim my garden. With a flick of her wrist, Kaguya activated Amanamanaka. She didn't just teleport. She instantly rewrote the localized reality, shifting the entire Kamui node, the ghetto statue, the deep fryers, and the ambient atmosphere directly into her core dimension, a mountainous, highly gravitational wasteland. Back in the physical world, standing on the cliffside outside Konoha, Naruto Uzumaki's digital tablet beeped a harsh, crimson warning. Commander. Plankton's voice shrieked over the comms. Node Epsilon Kamui just vanished from the multiversal registry. An entity with a power level exceeding localized physics just hijacked the entire dimension and dragged it into a sequestered pocket reality. The extra-dimensional real estate has been stolen, Naruto analyzed deadpan. He adjusted his white paper hat. He didn't need Obito to open a portal. Naruto tapped his wrist gauntlet, activating the consortium slipspace beacon integrated into his suit. Dimensional breach. Authorized. A violet tear ripped open the air in front of him. Naruto stepped through, leaving the physical world behind. He materialized directly in Kaguya's core dimension, his silent stalkers landing perfectly on the jagged, rocky terrain. The gravity here was immense. Roughly 15.0 gigaseconds. But Naruto's artificially dense hydro suit didn't even register the shift. Hovering high above him was the rabbit goddess. Below her, the stolen syndicate deep friars sat incongruously on the rocks. "You are the anomaly," Kaguya stated, looking down at the rectangular, yellow entity. "You possess no chakra. Yet you defy my gravity. You are a parasite in my garden." "I am the chief executive officer," Naruto corrected, his squeaky voice projecting upward with absolute, unyielding authority. "And you are currently in possession of stolen corporate property. Return the friars, or face immediate liquidation." Kaguya raised a pale hand. "I will return you to dust." All-killing ash bones. Two gray, bone-like projectiles shot from her palms at hypersonic speeds, aimed directly at Naruto's porous chest. They were absolute, one-hit kill weapons. Anything they touched deteriorated into dust on a molecular level. It bypassed durability entirely. Naruto did not draw his spatula, he did not dodge. Biological degradation relies on the assumption of a carbon-based cellular structure, Naruto stated softly. He tapped his wrist gauntlet. Density paradigm. Absolute liquefaction. In a fraction of a millisecond, Naruto dropped his localized mass to 0.0 gigaseconds while simultaneously disengaging the structural tension of his hydro suit. He completely lost his solid, rectangular form, instantly turning into a highly pressurized puddle of deep ocean water on the rocky ground. The all-killing ash bones shot harmlessly through the space where his chest had been, striking the rocks behind him and turning the mountain into gray ash. A split second later, the puddle surged upward, rapidly reforming into the crisp, perfectly squared yellow fry cook. Molecular decay cannot target a fluid dynamic, Naruto critiqued deadpan, folding his hands behind his back. Kaguya's Byakugan widened in sheer disbelief. You dodged the inevitable?" "I optimized my physical state to avoid overhead damage," Naruto replied. He looked up at the goddess. "Your business model is the divine tree. A massive, localized agricultural asset that requires the life force of an entire planet to produce a single chakra fruit." Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out his digital tablet, projecting a holographic spreadsheet into the heavy gravity of the dimension. "This is the most inefficient agricultural supply chain in the multiverse," Naruto diagnosed ruthlessly. "You wait a millennium for a single yield. Your profit margins are non-existent. You are operating a celestial monopoly, but you have no inventory." "The chakra fruit is the ultimate power," Black Zetsu shrieked from Kaguya's sleeve. "It makes her a god." "It makes her a poor administrator," Naruto countered. He reached into his square pocket. He didn't pull out a raw patty this time. He pulled out the absolute zenith of the Chicago Bioforge's output, a double-triple bossy deluxe, on a raft, 4x4 animal style. Extra shingles with a shimmy and a squeeze, light axle grease, make it cry, burn it, and let it swim. It was a staggering, towering monument of culinary perfection, dripping with the amber, proprietary syndicate gold. The thermal heat signature radiating from it was so flawless it caused the air in Kaguya's dimension to waver. "I do not wait 1,000 years for a single fruit," Naruto declared. "I produce 10 billion of these every hour. They do not require the death of a planet. They require only consumer desire." He tossed the massive burger upward. Despite the heavy gravity, Naruto used a precise, localized kinetic flick to launch the burger perfectly into Kaguya's hands. The rabbit goddess caught it instinctively. The heat of the bun, the sheer, overwhelming sensory data of the deep-sea salt and the pulverized kelp umami hit her pale face. "Mother, do not consume it," Zetsu warned frantically. "It's a chemical trap." But Kaguya was a being driven by the fundamental desire to absorb all energy. The burger radiated a caloric density that rivaled the chakra fruit itself. Slowly, hesitantly, Kaguya took a bite. The dopamine receptors of a god are vastly more sensitive than a mortal's. When the syndicate gold hit the progenitor of chakra's palate, the reaction was cosmological. The heavy, oppressive gravity of her core dimension instantly shattered, returning to a peaceful 1.0 g. The jagged rocks transformed into blooming terrestrial flowers. Kaguya's Rinne Sharingan blinked rapidly, the sheer, unadulterated perfection of the localized MSG overriding her millennia of paranoia, betrayal, and god complex. The flavor was absolute. It was better than chakra. It was better than control. It was the Pax Syndicata. Kaguya floated down to the ground, her knees touching the flowers. She took another massive bite, her pale eyes wide with an emotion she hadn't felt since she first arrived on Earth. Satisfaction. This energy, Kaguya whispered, her voice losing all its divine hostility. It does not require harvesting. It is freely given. It is delicious. It is optimized, Naruto confirmed, walking forward. He pulled out a digital contract and a crisp, white corporate apron. The Otsutsuki clan's aggressive planetary harvesting operations are hereby liquidated, Naruto commanded softly. You possess the ability to shift dimensions instantly. You will be appointed head of extra-dimensional agriculture. You will use your core dimensions to grow the specialized kelp required for the amber glaze. Kaguya looked at the apron. She looked at the warlord of Greece. The divine alien conqueror had been utterly pacified by the sheer, undeniable reality of a superior product. Without a word, Kaguya Otsutsuki reached out, signed the datapad with a delicate finger, and tied the white apron over her divine robes. Command. The extraterrestrial agricultural deficit has been resolved, Naruto reported smoothly into his lapel mic. The rabbit goddess is franchised. Black Zetsu, realizing he had just been rendered completely obsolete, tried to slither away into the rocks. Naruto didn't even look at him. He simply stepped on the black ooze with his silent stalkers, increasing his localized mass to 50.0 gigaseconds, permanently flattening the manifestation of Kaguya's will into a useless, two-dimensional stain on the dirt. Clean up on aisle 3, Naruto deadpanned. Kaguya's core dimension, formerly a jagged hypergravitational wasteland, had been transformed completely. It was now known as Sector 7, extra-dimensional kelp logistics. A shallow, man-made sea rippled gently with millions of acres of virgin, genetically enhanced ocean kelp. The ambient gravity was set to a comfortable 1.0 g. There above the river, with her perfect white corporate apron over her heavenly robes, Kaguya Otsutsuki was floating. The rabbit goddess was using her Byakugan to monitor the localized nitrogen levels of the water crops, not to track any terrestrial foes. Her Rinne Sharingan pulsed now and then, making little adjustments to the temporal flow of the dimension to speed up the kelp's development cycle by 400%. Harvest efficiency is at its peak, whispered Kaguya, taking a slow sip from a Syndicate-branded thermos of Syndicate Gold. With her eyes shut, she shivered a little as the perfect umami flowed over her wonderful palate. The yield will be higher than the Q3 projections. Suddenly the fabric of space-time over the kelp fields ripped. It wasn't the exact, violet slipspace breach of the Syndicate, it was a jagged, primal rip of sheer cosmic domination. From the rift two figures climbed down. Momoshiki Otsutsuki, aristocratic and alien in his arrogance, sneered at the wet countryside. Behind him stood Kinshiki Otsutsuki's enormous, imposing form, clutching his glowing red chakra axe. Momoshiki, his voice was terrifyingly high-class. Kaguya, your job was to cultivate the divine tree and harvest the chakra fruit of this region. But ages have gone by, and now we discover you in the disguise of an earthly worker, cultivating weeds. Momoshiki raised his hand, the Rinnegan in his palm glowing ominously. You have committed high treason against the main branch, said Momoshiki. I will take my chakra, and use it as medicine for me to eat. Kinshiki, level this miserable garden. Yes, Lord Momoshiki, rumbled the huge retainer. Before Kinshiki could bring down his axe, a loud, pneumatic thump sounded across the sea. A sleek titanium transport tube, woven into the fabric of the dimensions, opened on a nearby floating pier. Naruto Uzumaki climbed out of the tube. His silent stalkers clicked softly against the metal mesh. He fixed his scarlet tie and glanced up to the two extraterrestrial gods. You are in an active agricultural zone. Naruto's squeaky deadpan echoed across the kelp fields. Please stay on designated pathways or you will be cited for property damage. Momoshiki stopped, floating down until he was eye level with the yellow rectangular thing. He plied his Byakugan, flaring, over the sponge. What is this pusillanimous beast? Snorted Momoshiki, repulsed. There's no chakra at all. It's a biological vacuum. Kaguya, have you swapped your white Zetsu army for sea sponges? Kaguya descended with ease, landing next to Naruto. She did not cringe to her clan leaders. He's the chief executive officer, Kaguya said, her voice calm and utterly soothed by the corporate perks package. And you are destroying the supply chain, Momoshiki. I suggest you leave. His localized density is absolute. Momoshiki flung his head back and laughed, a harsh, high-pitched scream of total cosmological dominance. A CEO? Supply chains? Scoffed Momoshiki. Kagaya, you lost your goddamn mind. I'm an Otsutsuki god. I eat planets. I transform stars into pills. Momoshiki extended his right hand, aiming the palm Rinnegan straight at Naruto. Takami Musubi no Kami. High Spirit Bind. Momoshiki's palm exploded a huge swirl of absorbing energy. It was designed to totally absorb any chakra, ninjutsu or biological energy, compress it into a tiny red pill and give Momoshiki the strength of what he ate. Naruto didn't use body flicker, he didn't pull his paddle. Naruto stared into the vortex, blue eyes unblinking. You use others' work to raise your own metrics artificially. It's aggressive corporate cannibalism. But you can only eat what you can digest. Naruto reached into his square pocket. He didn't pull out a raw patty, he drew from his bag a pressurized industrial-size 5-gallon drum of pure, concentrated syndicate gold. It was the uncut, unprocessed baseline fluid. The chemical summit of the umami algorithm. The caloric density that scorned terrestrial mathematics. Naruto had nonchalantly thrown the 5-gallon drum right into the path of Momoshiki's absorption vortex. Eat the proprietary viscosity. Naruto deadpanned. Momoshiki's Rinnegan shone. He didn't care what it was. His eye technique could shatter matter into raw energy. The drum of sauce was sucked into his palm quickly, dissolving in bright red light. A moment later, a single bright pill appeared in Momoshiki's hand. But that wasn't a chakra pill. It was a deep-fried ball, perfectly spherical and golden, that smelled like the culinary heavens had opened up. Pathetic, Momoshiki snarled, flicking the golden pill into his mouth and crunching it down. I'll utilize your viscosity as raw power too. Momoshiki went still. His Byakugan eyes opened wide, practically swallowing his irises. The localized MSG, the deep sea salt, and the pure, infinitely condensed caloric capital of the syndicate gold evaded his alien digestion altogether. It hit his godly neurological system like a freight train from the omniverse. Momoshiki had lived his immortal existence on bitter, chalky chakra pills, made from the pain of dying worlds. He had zero patience for high-fructose algorithmic perfection. By the cosmos, Momoshiki muttered, his arrogance completely evaporating as a line of drool spilled from his mouth. The taste. It is a transcendent truth, it is. Too many calories, Naruto said softly, interrupting. Momoshiki's metabolism, which was programmed to immediately convert ingested energy into physical body mass and power, suddenly knew what it had just consumed. It was not chakra. It was straight, unfiltered fast food capital. Flump. Momoshiki's thighs swelled suddenly, fiercely. The godlike alien's pure white robes tore at the seams as his localized fat cells entered hyper-accelerated mitosis, absorbing the 5 gallons of pure sauce right into his lower extremities. Momoshiki Otsutsuki went from sleek, aristocratic extraterrestrial god to the bottom half of a huge, strongly grounded terrestrial boulder in 3 seconds. What's happening to my divine vessel? Momoshiki wailed, his voice shaking as his localized gravity went through the roof. He lost the power to float. Momoshiki fell from the skies with a tremendous, humiliating crash, his enormous, sauce-filled thighs smashing against the floating metal pier, cratering the titanium. He tried to rise, but the sheer, awesome magnitude of localized caloric density paralyzed his legs utterly. The Squidward paradigm's terrible realization, plain and simple. The warlord of Greece had just given him what he had asked for, ignoring his jutsu. You didn't read the nutritional information. Naruto commented smoothly, stepping up to the grounded god. Direct to your thighs, the syndicate gold. And then you blow up. Momoshiki glanced down at his huge, unmoving legs in a horror of tears. I give up. Take the sauce back, please. Naruto's face was a stone mask. No refunds. He produced a digital datapad. Naruto said, even though your food choices are bad, the capacity to immediately convert raw materials into consumable commodities is very efficient. You are drafted into the Syndicate Manufacturing Division. You will utilize your Rinnegan to swiftly package combo meals during the multiversal dinner rush. Naruto stared up at the sky where Kinshiki still floated, his glowing red axe shaking in his huge hands. "Do you want to lodge a formal complaint?" Naruto asked the retainer. Kinshiki watched Kagaya drink from her thermos quietly. He stared at his lord, who was weeping on the pier now, absolutely paralyzed by culinary perfection. Kinshiki carefully released the chakra axe. He glided down, got to his knees on the dock, lowered his great head. "I have excellent heavy lifting capabilities," Kinshiki muttered, his spirit utterly crushed. I could unload the delivery trucks." "Welcome to the Conch Street Syndicate," said Naruto as he dropped 2 crimson ties on the dock. He tapped the microphone on his lapel. "Command. The Otsutsuki main branch recon team has been pacified and restructured into the labor force," said Naruto, fixing his pristine white paper hat. "I see it on the multiversal ledger, boss," Plankton cackled across the comms. "We just got their spatial coordinates. We have the location of the Otsutsuki homeworld. A planet full of pompous, immortal gods who have never tasted a French fry." Naruto Uzumaki glanced up at the jagged tear in spacetime Momoshiki left gaping. "A whole world of untapped consumers," Naruto whispered, blue eyes unblinking as the sheer, infinite potential of the cosmic free market unveiled itself. "Prepare the Leviathan Armada. It's time to make an omniversal initial public offering. The syndicate goes public. They know the coordinates to the homeworld of the Otsutsuki. Where to Chapter 66? Do we go all-out corporate invasion on the alien homeworld to confront Shibai Otsutsuki, the transcendent god? Or do we cut to the Chicago boardroom where Kakuzu and Plankton are setting up the syndicate's IPO for the multiversal stock exchange? Node Prime Terrestrial, originally the sovereign burger tower in Chicago, was running at such a level of financial kinetic energy it may have blown a hole in terrestrial math. Inside the penthouse boardroom, the mahogany table has been replaced with a huge, multi-tiered terminal of holographic trading panels. The Conch Street Syndicate was preparing for its initial public offering on the newly formed Multiversal Stock Exchange, MSE. At the heart of the financial hurricane was CFO Kakuzu. He was in his custom-tailored pinstriped suit, with a fresh red tie. His emerald eyes opened to their very widest extent, his 5 hearts beating in perfect, synchronized rhythm with pure capitalist joy. "The institutional investors in the Andromeda Galaxy are trying to short the stock before the bell rings," Kakuzu yelled into a dual-frequency headset, his stitched hands moving over 3 digital ledgers at once. "Liquidate their pension funds. I want their star systems heavily leveraged. When the syndicate goes public, I want the entire Milky Way's gross domestic product to seem like a rounding error." Beside Kakuzu on a tiny anti-grav platform was Sheldon J. Plankton in a tiny tuxedo. "The slip-space fiber optic cables are holding, Kakuzu," Plankton cackled, rubbing his small green fists together. "We have high-frequency trading algorithms hooked directly into the localized time streams of 400 dimensions. We are making deals before consumers even know they're hungry." The huge main screen at the front of the boardroom was showing a live feed of the Leviathan Armada. In the frozen emptiness of the Kuiper Belt, tens of thousands of matte black, heavily armored Leviathan-class transports hung in perfect geometric configuration. They were flanked by converted golden dreadnoughts of the consortium, and a full division of slipspace couriers with Uchiha crews escorted them. Naruto Uzumaki stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Leviathan. He was not in his ordinary dress. For the heavenly invasion he was clad in a bespoke, pitch-black Warlord Tier Eva suit with a bright neon red tie, yet his white paper hat remained exactly centered on his porous, rectangular cranium. "CFO Kakuzu," Naruto's deadpan voice squeaked into the boardroom via the secure quantum uplink. "Confirm the flow of capital. To do a hostile takeover of the Otsutsuki homeworld, you need to have enough liquid assets to buy out their localized planetary defenses." "The liquidity is absolute, CEO," Kakuzu said, his voice shaking with a holy reverence he had never once shown to the Akatsuki or Lord Jashin. 30 seconds till the opening bell. The opening price for ticker symbol CNCH is 100,000 galactic credits per share. It is the biggest valuation in the history of localized spacetime. "Good," Naruto said softly. "Buybacks when the bell rings, and open the dimensional rift." Kakuzu glanced up to the giant digital clock counting down over the hologram Earth. 10, 9, 8. Trillions of biological and synthetic beings across the multiverse held their breath. From the franchised shinobi of Konohagakure eating deep-fried rations to the selenite overlords on the moon to the hyper-evolved brains of the Mercantile Consortium. All of them waited for some of the amber glaze to come. 3, 2, 1. Ding 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 ding. The multiversal stock exchange formally opened. Kakuzu's holographic screens didn't just light up, they exploded into a brilliant, never-ending torrent of solid, bright green. The trade volume was so rapid and huge, the Chicago servers started to smoke. "They're buying," shouted Plankton, his single eye growing wide with pure megalomaniacal delight. "The Earthlings. The Sand Ninja. The aliens in suits. They're throwing their life savings into the IPO. The stock price is doubling every 4 seconds. We've reached a market cap of infinity," Kakuzu muttered, tears of pure greed trickling down his stitched face. "The multiverse is our bull market." Naruto Uzumaki watched the financial telemetry stream on the dashboard of his flagship from up in the Kuiper Belt. The funds required to fund the cosmic expansion had been secured, and not a shot had been fired. They were on unlimited margin. Naruto looked to his chief engineer, Sandy Cheeks, who was strapped onto the navigation panel, wearing a specialized, heavy G-air helmet. "The IPO has paid for the Vanguard," Naruto ordered coldly. "Chief Engineer, open the portal to the Otsutsuki homeworld." "Coordinates locked, Commander," Sandy shouted, yanking down the big primary slipspace lever, creating the omniversal singularity. The local consortium jump gates coordinated, and millions of miles of tethered asteroids wailed in the vacuum of space. A tear in the fabric of the universe the size of the planet Jupiter split open in the center of the Kuiper Belt, burning with a terrible, blinding gold light. Naruto slammed his hand on the Armada's internal comm array. "All syndicate vessels," announced Naruto, his squeaky voice emanating the terrible, unrelenting authority of the ultimate oddity of free markets. "For millennia, the Otsutsuki clan has had an unregulated monopoly on life. They believe themselves gods. We will show them that they are nothing more than an outdated business model. Engage thermal pulse engines. We are taking the franchise to the heavens." Tens of thousands of thermal pulse engines detonated simultaneously, burning with the heat of a local supernova. The Leviathan Armada charged ahead, exceeding the physical speed of light, and plunged headlong into the golden spatial hole. The warlord of Greece was no longer satisfied with earthly beaches or elemental nations. He was marching on the very designers of Chakra, armed with endless capital and a flawlessly optimized supply system. The skies were starting to right themselves. The Otsutsuki homeworld had no land-based economy. It was without cities, without money, without culture. It was a sterile, spotless sphere of pure white, covered with towering crystalline palaces and enormous silent courtyards. It was a world of nothing but apex predators that thought they were the top of existence. They didn't construct. They harvested. They were parasites masquerading as God. The High Council of the Otsutsuki had gathered in the Grand Celestial Courtyard, standing in a circle of floating thrones. The Grand Elder, Urashiki I, was in the middle of the council, supported by a shining red staff. But even he answered to the ambient, disembodied presence that permeated the very atmosphere of the planet. Shibai Otsutsuki. Shibai had eaten so many chakra fruits that his physical body could no longer contain him, and he had transcended into a purely conceptual and omnipotent mind that ruled the clan from a higher plane. "The ground crop in Sector 814 is late," said the Grand Elder, his Byakugan taking in the stars. "Kagaya, Momoshiki, and Kinshiki have gone silent. The flow of chakra pills has been cut off." A minor logistical inefficiency, Shibai's voice reverberated, not as sound but as an absolute truth placed directly into the brains of the council. "I will rewrite the localized reality of that region. I will order the terrestrial monkeys to submit themselves to the roots of the tree." As Shibai was about to start the omnipotence Shinjutsu, the sterile white sky of the homeworld buckled abruptly. A crack of golden blinding size, the size of a small moon, burst through the upper atmosphere of the planet. The perfect calm of the Otsutsuki homeworld was broken by the deafening, industrial scream of 10,000 hybrid thermal pulse engines. The Leviathan Armada came down. A scary, mathematically perfect grid of matte black, massively armored semi-trucks and refurbished consortium dreadnoughts blotting out the celestial sun. The crystalline palaces were draped in the dark corporate shadow of the warlord's vanguard. The Otsutsuki elders jumped from their hovering thrones in unmitigated fury. "What is this impertinence?" bellowed the Grand Elder, his rinnegan flashing. "Who dares to befoul the hallowed heavens with this crude metal offal?" A huge holographic projection came down from the flagship Leviathan into the middle of the plaza. It was a bright yellow thing, completely rectangular, in a black warlord tier Eva suit with a flashing red tie and a clean white paper hat. His hands were clasped tightly at his back. "Greetings to the board members of the Otsutsuki Collective." Naruto Uzumaki's squeaky deadpan voice reverberated over the whole world, amplified by a consortium-grade amplification matrix. "I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Conch Street Syndicate. I am here to perform a celestial audit." "You are a biological mistake." Shibai's disembodied omnipotent voice vibrated through the very bedrock of the globe. "You have no chakra. You have no divine right. You're a blot on my painting. I will wipe you out." Shibai Otsutsuki unveiled his ultimate power, omnipotence. It was the acme of Shinjutsu. There was no need for hand signals or physical force. It just rewrote the past, present, and future of reality to accommodate the will of the user. Shibai commanded reality to command that the Conch Street Syndicate had never existed, that the yellow sponge was only seafoam, that the fleet was a hallucination. The Black Fleet was engulfed in a flood of divine, reality-altering force. Nothing happened. The Leviathans continued to loiter. The neon red signs shone just as hot. Naruto Uzumaki peered down into the courtyard with unblinking blue eyes, completely unmoved. "What?" gulped the Grand Elder, backing away. "The will of Lord Shibai is absolute. Why does the metal not dust away?" Naruto evaluated from the holographic representation. "Perfectly. Your conceptual manipulation is reliant on confined, terrestrial memory and physical substance. But you can't edit an immutable, multiversal blockchain." Kakuzu's maniacal laughter rang over the radios back in Chicago. "The CEO's right. We're publicly traded on the multiversal stock exchange. Our corporate essence is inscribed in the financial ledgers of 400 separate dimensions. You can't destroy us, because trillions of stockholders possess the receipts." Naruto slapped his wrist gauntlet. Naruto said quietly, "The parasite is your business strategy. You sow trees, you wait 1,000 years, you reap one fruit, and that is how you attain false transcendence. That is the epitome of unsustainable overhead. You have no recurring consumer base. You have no product. You are not gods. You are horrible administrators." Shibai was radiating an otherworldly, invisible yet palpable rage. "Shibai AMI, omnipotent AMI, mathematics transcend I." "You can't get around the free market," Naruto corrected. Once again the sky above the fleet split open, the end of the multiversal pneumatic umbilical appearing, connected directly to the Sector 4 manufacturing hub at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. "Start the hostile takeover," Naruto said. Thunk hiss. It wasn't a laser beam. It was localized and high-pressure carpet bombing of unlimited stock. Millions upon millions of neatly built, flash-frozen Krabby Patties, and millions of pressurized, 5-gallon drums of syndicate gold showered down upon the beautiful white courtyards of the Otsutsuki homeworld. The sheer caloric density of the onslaught was beginning to crush the crystal palaces. The Grand Elder fired a volley of black chakra receivers, destroy the terrestrial refuse. But as the deep-sea salt, the crushed kelp umami and the mathematically perfect thermal heat of the unique viscosity covered the celestial architecture, the ambient environment of the planet was totally ruined. The Otsutsuki elders were caught in the blast radius of the sauce drums that rupture. The instant the amber glaze made contact with their pale, aristocratic skins and started to sink into their pores, the chemical pacification algorithm activated. Decades of chalky, bitter chakra pills had made their magnificent dopamine receptors absolutely raw and exposed. The Grand Elder dropped his bright red staff. His Byakugan widened. He knelt in the amber-covered yard, scooped up a handful of the sauce and stuffed it into his lips. The taste," cried the Grand Elder, his celestial pride blown all to hell by localized MSG. "It's the real fruit. We've been starving, for eternity." In under 45 seconds, the whole High Council of the Otsutsuki clan surrendered, crying tears of pure culinary ecstasy amidst the ruins of their palaces, eating gloriously on the warlord's rations. But Shibai remained. "Fools! Do not drink the poison of the lower dimensions," Shibai screamed, his voice triggering localized earthquakes. "I shall take form and tear this traitor apart with my hands." The unseen, ambient chakra of the transcendent god began to condense, pulling the very fabric of the dimension into a swirling vortex as Shibai prepared to descend from his higher plane. You intend to make physical assets, Naruto said calmly. That is a tactical mistake. Naruto dipped into his pocket and drew out a digital pad. Naruto said, the instant you go from conceptual entity to physical entity, you are subject to the multiversal laws of commerce. 3 minutes ago, with the infinite capital created by our IPO, CFO Kakuzu purchased the deed to this planet, its atmosphere, and its gravitational pull. Shibai's physical form hovered, half-formed, a giant shadow of undeniable divine strength. You are standing on private property. Naruto deadpanned, his squeaky voice emitting absolute zero. And you haven't paid your entrance fee. Naruto tapped a button on his tablet. Eviction status, active. Plankton had linked the planet's freshly acquired gravity field to the syndicate's mainframe computer. The CEO snapped his finger and the gravity centered under Shibai's partly formed physical body inverted 10,000-fold. The deity of all gods was forced back, forcefully, uncontrollably, torn from the atmosphere of the homeworld and sent hurtling out into the black, frigid void of deep space. Shibai Otsutsuki was the end of the food chain for the multiverse. He was dragged from his homeworld for idling. Naruto Uzumaki set down his digital tablet. He gazed down at the sobbing franchised Otsutsuki elders licking syndicate gold from the spotless marble floor. He tapped his mic at his lapel. Command. Celestial restructuring successful. Otsutsuki clan successfully acquired, said Naruto, straightening his brilliant crimson tie. Send in the plasma drones. Dismantling the crystal palaces. I want a multi-lane drive-through instead of the grand courtyard by tomorrow morning. The warlord of Greece spun around from the hologram projector, peering out at the vast expanse of the stars from the bridge of his flagship. There were no gods left to battle. There was no other land warlord to be pacified. There was only the ledger. And the ledger was limitless. Pax Syndicata was absolute. The Otsutsuki homeworld, now officially known as Node Prime Celestial, had been heavily sterilized. The crystalline palaces that formerly housed the apex predators of the multiverse were completely stripped and retrofitted into the largest, most architecturally faultless drive-through complex in existence. The beautiful white courtyards were now resurfaced with precisely aligned asphalt. Momoshiki Otsutsuki remained 2 inches above the floor at the primary extraction window. His big, calorie-dense thighs were hidden behind the stainless steel counter. He donned a clean white paper hat over his horns, a crimson tie, and a computerized headset. A consortium freight hauler approached the window. Welcome to Node Prime Celestial, Momoshiki said with a deadened, lifeless tone reminiscent of a minimum wage laborer. Would you like to upsize your Syndicate Gold combo to a multiversal portion? Affirmative, the alien pilot said through the speaker. Pull forward to the next window. Get your galactic credits ready, Momoshiki groaned and pressed the registration button. He looked across at Kagaya, who was effortlessly using her Byakugan and all 80 of her 80 gods' vacuum fists to flip 400 Krabby Patties on a gigantic, zero-gravity flat-top grill. She was wearing the Employee of the Month badge. You missed a spot of grease on Sector 4, Momoshiki, Kagaya said peacefully, not looking away from the grill. The CEO requires absolute structural cleanliness. I am a god of the cosmos, Momoshiki cried quietly, wiping off the surface with a sterilized rag. I harvest stars. You harvest the minimum wage, a deep voice said. Kinshiki went by, carrying a frozen consignment of 10,000 patties on his huge back, fully subdued by the supply chain. Naruto Uzumaki and CFO Kakuzu were watching logistics from the freshly built Omniversal Command Center, located above the drive-through. The fourth quarter estimates have been entirely destroyed, CEO Kakuzu informed, his 5 hearts purring. We eliminated hunger in 12 separate dimensions. The revenue is so dense that it creates its own localized gravity. A profitable quarter, Naruto deadpanned, straightening his clean white shirt. But we must not allow complacency to infect the operational matrix. Suddenly, the proximity alarms stopped blaring a red warning. They chimed with a nice, earthy beige brightness. Commander, Sandy Cheek's voice came across the speakers, with a palpable panic in her Texas drawl. A terrestrial vessel has just snuck past our planetary barricade. It did not use a slipspace drive. It did not use chakra. It just parked. Naruto's blue eyes narrowed. Identify the vessel. It's a 1998 terrestrial sedan, boss, Plankton said over the uplink, his little voice quivering. And the entity stepping out of it, he possesses a clipboard. Naruto Uzumaki's porous body immediately stiffened. The warlord of Greece demonstrated physical apprehension for the first time in universe history. Use absolute sanitization protocols, Naruto said, his squeaky voice lowering to a sharp, desperate whisper. Tell the Otsutsuki to wash their hands for precisely 20 seconds. The multiversal health inspector is here. In the major courtyard, a man in a beige trenchcoat and brown fedora approached Node Prime Celestial's shimmering entrance. He didn't gaze at the stars. He did not examine the alien architecture, he looked at his clipboard. Inspector Yellowtail clicked his pen. Momoshiki peered out of the drive-through window, detecting an unapproved terrestrial biological signature. You're there, primitive mammal, Momoshiki snapped, a sliver of his previous arrogance returning. You're loitering in a commercial area. Inspector Yellowtail remained calm and said, withdraw or I will extract your chakra and. He approached the window, ran his gloved finger along the bottom edge of the stainless steel ledge, and examined it. Dust buildup on a key service exterior. Hostile employee attitude, Yellowtail snarled, leaving a quick, cruel mark on his clipboard. Momoshiki's Rinnegan reacted angrily. A demerit. I am Momoshiki Otsutsuki, and I will turn you into a pill. Before Momoshiki could lift his hand, Naruto Uzumaki appeared beside him, moving quicker than the flying Raijin. Naruto slapped a strongly compressed, 50.0 G palm directly onto the top of Momoshiki's skull, sending the alien deity crashing into the flooring with a resounding crack and effectively silencing him. Naruto stood perfectly straight, hands folded neatly behind his back. Welcome to Node Prime Celestial, Inspector, Naruto said in a deadpan tone packed with the utmost professional respect. The employee was having a localized neuroglitch. Yellowtail stared at the yellow sponge and said, he has been rebooted. He observed the unconscious alien god embedded in the floor. He clicked the pen again. Yellowtail referred to the warlord as Mr. Squarepants, using a dry tone. I've received word that your franchise has spread beyond county limits. I'm come to check your extra-dimensional temperature controls. Of course, Inspector. Our records are completely transparent, Naruto stated easily. For 2 hours, the most powerful beings in the multiverse experienced terror unlike any cataclysmic jutsu. The health inspector passed through the celestial kitchens. He measured the inside temperatures of Kagaya's zero-gravity deep fryers. He looked at the expiration dates on the cryogenic supply lines maintained by the Selenite hegemony. He even collected a core sample of the Syndicate Gold to confirm that the pH balance of the crushed kelp adhered strictly to FDA multiversal criteria. The Otsutsuki elders, franchised Akatsuki, and Eternal Kakuzu held their breath. They had dominated the stock market. They'd defeated reality. However, a single C grade from this beige business would mathematically demolish their customer trust. Inspector Yellowtail stood at the center of the celestial kitchen. He tapped his pen against the clipboard. Your localized gravity plating prevents cross-contamination of terrestrial and extraterrestrial biological fluids, Yellowtail said. Your kelp is kept at precisely 34 degrees Fahrenheit. And your staff? He peered down at Momoshiki, who was still groaning on the floor, now carrying a mop. Appears to be maintaining the sanitary perimeter. Yellowtail reached into his trenchcoat. He took out a laminated blue sticker with a large, bold, A. He removed the backing and placed it on the polished titanium wall of the Otsutsuki homewood. You pass, Mr. Squarepants, Yellowtail exclaimed. Keep the fryers clean. The inspector returned to his 1998 automobile and drove off into space, disappearing into the cosmic void. The celestial kitchen exploded with loud cheers. Kagaya breathed out a tremendous sigh of relief. Plankton was openly weeping at the communication. Kakuzu began hurriedly calculating the marketing potential of an overall A rating. Naruto Uzumaki stood before the blue sticker. He didn't cheer. He simply reached into his pocket, took out a sterilized cloth, and delicately polished a minuscule smudge from the edge of the laminated document. He began as a fry cook at the bottom of the ocean. He had been reincarnated into a realm of never-ending, brutal shinobi combat. He had used his unwavering operational efficiency to bankrupt warlords, franchise gods, and entirely overhaul the celestial hierarchy. He optimized existence itself. Naruto adjusted his clean white paper cap. He tucked his hands behind his back and gazed out through the clean glass of the cosmic drive-thru, watching 1,000-star systems align to purchase his combo lunch. The supply chain is flawless, the warlord of Greece whispered quietly into the silent cosmos. Let the dinner rush begin. For years, Sasuke Uchiha had walked in the shadows of the elemental nations. While the Hidden Leaf Village had transformed into a gleaming, neon-lit distribution hub for the Conch Street Syndicate, the last Uchiha had refused to be franchised. He had utilized his Rinnegan to escape the terrestrial market, wandering through the dark, uncharted dimensions of the multiverse to track the ultimate threat to reality, the Otsutsuki homeworld. He had survived on scavenged terrestrial roots and rainwater. He had honed his visual prowess to absolute perfection. He was ready to fight gods. Deep in the cosmic void, Sasuke drew his Kusanagi blade. He channeled his Six Paths chakra into his left eye, tearing a jagged, spatial portal directly into the heart of the Otsutsuki Empire. He stepped through the rift, his purple Rinnegan blazing, lightning sparking from his fingertips, fully prepared to face an army of 10,000 celestial conquerors. Instead, he stepped onto a freshly paved, flawlessly striped asphalt parking lot. Sasuke froze. The atmospheric pressure was a perfect, comfortable 1.0 G soft, instrumental jazz music was playing from high-fidelity exterior speakers. What genjutsu is this? Sasuke whispered, his Sharingan spinning wildly as he scanned the environment. He expected towering crystalline palaces of pure, divine energy. Instead, he stood before a sprawling, titanium fast food complex glowing with aggressive red neon. A heavy, rhythmic thudding approached from the side of the building. Sasuke spun around, leveling his lightning-infused blade. Emerging from the shadows was Kinshiki Otsutsuki, the massive, hulking retainer. But Kinshiki was not wielding his glowing red chakra axe. He was carrying two massive, black industrial garbage bags. He wore a heavily stained white apron. Otsutsuki scum. Sasuke snarled, his Chidori chirping like 1,000 birds. Your reign of terror ends here. Draw your weapon. Kinshiki paused. He looked at the crackling lightning. He looked at the Uchiha. He sighed, a deep, booming sound of absolute, corporate exhaustion. I am currently operating on a legally mandated, unpaid 15-minute break, Kinshiki rumbled in a dull monotone. Engaging in localized combat violates Section 4, Paragraph B of my syndicate union contract. If you wish to declare war, you must submit a formal grievance to Human Resources. Excuse me. Kinshiki casually walked past the stunned Uchiha, tossed the garbage bags into a massive, pressurized dimensional dumpster, and trudged back toward the rear entrance of the kitchen. Sasuke's Chidori slowly fizzled out, his genius-level tactical mind completely stalled. He cautiously advanced toward the sliding glass doors of the primary entrance. As they automatically opened with a pleasant chime, Sasuke was hit by a wave of pressurized, climate-controlled air that smelled of deep-sea salt, pulverized kelp, and a mathematically perfect thermal heat. Welcome to Node Prime Celestial, a dead, hollow voice droned from behind the front counter. Sasuke's eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated horror. Standing at the cash register was Momoshiki Otsutsuki. The alien god who had consumed stars and terrorized dimensions was wearing a folded paper hat. Behind him, hovering over a massive flat-top grill, was Kagaya, the rabbit goddess and progenitor of chakra, flawlessly flipping 100 patties with her Byakugan. I am trapped in the infinite Tsukuyomi, Sasuke breathed, staggering backward. This is a nightmare. This is an optimized retail environment, a squeaky, deadpan voice corrected from the shadows of the dining room. Sasuke whipped around. Standing by a perfectly sanitized condiment station was a bright yellow, perfectly rectangular entity. He wore a crisp white shirt, a glowing red tie, and shiny black shoes. His large blue eyes did not blink. Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki stated, folding his four-fingered hands behind his back. Your operational status has been listed as AWOL for exactly 42 fiscal quarters. You have accumulated 0 paid time off. Sasuke stared at the sponge. There was no chakra signature. There was no biological familiarity. And yet, the sheer, crushing presence of the entity resonated with an aura Sasuke had not felt since the Valley of the End. Naruto? Sasuke whispered, his hand tightening on the hilt of his sword. What? What did they do to you? Are you a puppet? Some twisted summon? Naruto Uzumaki was a highly inefficient terrestrial military asset, Naruto replied smoothly, taking a slow, squeaky step forward. He relied on raw emotion, unpredictable biological energy, and a volatile, localized demon fox to achieve his objectives. I am the market correction. I am the chief executive officer. Sasuke's jaw clenched. You're a monster. You've enslaved the world. You've enslaved the gods. I won't let this twisted reality stand. Sasuke's left eye bled. Amaterasu, black, inextinguishable flames erupted directly onto the yellow sponge's crisp white shirt. The flames of the sun goddess, capable of burning fire itself, roared to life. Naruto did not scream. He did not dodge. He calmly reached into his square pocket and pulled out a sanitized, syndicate-branded damp cloth. Unsanctioned thermal output, Naruto diagnosed softly. With a few brisk, mechanical wipes, Naruto casually scrubbed the Amaterasu off his shirt. The black flames did not consume the cloth. They were simply wiped out of existence by the absolute, pressurized fluid dynamics of the warlord's localized hydro suit. Naruto tossed the slightly singed cloth into a nearby trash receptacle. Sasuke stood completely paralyzed. He had just watched a fast food mascot wipe away the pinnacle of Uchiha visual prowess like it was a spilled soda. Your offensive capabilities rely on terrestrial physics, Naruto explained, adjusting his red tie. They possess zero efficacy against corporate infrastructure. You are a highly skilled asset, Sasuke. But you are wandering without a ledger. You generate no revenue. You possess no equity. Naruto reached into his pocket. He did not pull out a contract. He pulled out a single, perfectly sealed foil ramekin of syndicate gold. He tossed it. Sasuke caught it instinctively. I know your psychological profile, Naruto stated deadpan. You seek absolute power to force the world into peace. You sought to become the ultimate enemy to unite the nations. It is a lonely, highly inefficient business model. Naruto pointed at the dipping sauce. I have already achieved your objective, Naruto declared. The 5 great nations are at peace. The Akatsuki is delivering packages. The Otsutsuki are working the fryer. The multiverse is united not by fear, but by the proprietary viscosity. Consume it, Sasuke. And recognize that your war is over. Sasuke looked at the small plastic cup. He looked at Kagaya Otsutsuki, who was currently humming a terrestrial pop song as she cleaned the grill. His life's purpose, his endless, blood-soaked quest for vengeance, revolution, and shadowy peace, was entirely obsolete. The world didn't need a shadow Hokage. It needed a supply chain. With a trembling hand, Sasuke peeled back the foil. He didn't have a burger, so he simply dipped his finger into the amber glaze and tasted it. The localized MSG hit the Uchiha's brooding, traumatized palate. The deep-sea salt washed away the curse of hatred. The mathematically perfect thermal heat illuminated the darkest corners of his soul. It was a flavor so undeniably, universally perfect that it completely shattered his edgy stoicism. Sasuke dropped his kusanagi blade. It clattered uselessly against the tiled floor. A single tear, not of blood, but of absolute, culinary capitulation, rolled down his cheek. It's perfect, Sasuke wept softly, falling to his knees in the center of the dining room. I have fought for nothing, when this existed. Naruto walked forward and placed a yellow hand on Sasuke's shoulder. You fought to optimize the world, Naruto corrected. You simply lacked the proper algorithm. Naruto pulled a dark blue, syndicate-branded visor and a clipboard from his pocket, handing them to the broken Uchiha. The syndicate is initiating Phase 20. Omniversal quality assurance, Naruto commanded, his squeaky voice radiating absolute, unyielding authority. You possess the Rinnegan. You possess unparalleled visual acuity. You will be appointed head of the Secret Shopper Division. You will travel the dimensions, auditing franchise locations to ensure the fries are mathematically crisp. Sasuke looked at the clipboard. He looked at his former friend, who had transcended humanity to become a god of commerce. I accept the position, CEO, Sasuke whispered, placing the visor over his dark hair. Naruto Uzumaki nodded once. Excellent, the warlord of Greece deadpanned. Your first audit is the Sand Village. Ensure Gaara is utilizing the correct ratio of salt. The dinner rush waits for no man. Deep within an untraceable, localized pocket dimension, the atmosphere inside the Kara Ventures boardroom was toxic. Kara Ventures, LLC was supposed to be the ultimate, shadow tech startup. Ashiki Otsutsuki, currently operating within the biological vessel of Jigen, sat at the head of a long, geometric table. He was sipping a glass of terrestrial red wine, his dark eyes narrowed in absolute, unyielding frustration. Surrounding him were the inner members of Kara, cybernetically enhanced executives who had once planned to cultivate their own divine tree and monopolize the elemental nation's energy sector. The Q1 earnings report is catastrophic. Amato, the brilliant, chain-smoking head of R&D, sighed, tossing a digital dossier onto the table. Our synthetic karma protein supplements have been completely rejected by the terrestrial market. We hold 0% market share. Code, leaning back in his chair with his feet on the table, scoffed. Because nobody wants to eat chalky white energy bars, Amato. I tried to establish a distribution network in the land of iron. Before I could even unload the crates, I was ambushed by a dozen Uchiha couriers. They hit me with a localized space-time delivery fee and confiscated my entire inventory. The terrestrial consumers have been completely chemically pacified, Delta sneered, crossing her arms. Her cybernetic eyes glowed with irritation. They don't want power. They don't want evolution. They just want the dipping sauce. Jigen's hand tightened around his wine glass. The glass shattered, the crimson liquid spilling onto the table. The Conch Street Syndicate is not a legitimate corporation, Jigen declared, his voice a low, terrifying rumble of alien elitism. They are a fast food monopoly run by a porous, oceanic parasite. They have humiliated my clan. They have turned the Otsutsuki homeworld into a drive-through. They're disrupting my venture capital. Jigen stood up, brushing the shattered glass from his cloak. We cannot compete with their algorithmic logistics, Jigen calculated coldly. Therefore, we must acquire their intellectual property through hostile espionage. Amato's telemetry indicates that the proprietary viscosity, the Syndicate Gold, is manufactured primarily at Node Prime Terrestrial, the Chicago Bioforge. Jigen looked at Delta. Delta, you are our most destructive infiltration asset, Jigen commanded. Breach the Chicago Tower. Bypass their security grid. Download the algorithmic formula for the amber glaze, and burn their cloning vats to the ground. We will reverse engineer their sauce and rebrand it under Kara Ventures. Delta smirked, her cybernetic body thrumming with raw, destructive power. Consider the Bioforge liquidated, Jigen. I'll bring you the sponge's recipe on a silver platter. At 0300 hours, the terrestrial city of Chicago was battered by a heavy, relentless rainstorm. High above the clouds, Delta disengaged her stealth flight rockets. She plummeted toward the roof of the Sovereign Tower like a highly lethal, cybernetic meteor. She engaged her dampening fields at the last millisecond, landing completely silently on the slick titanium roof of Node Prime Terrestrial. Infiltration successful, Delta whispered into her internal comms, scanning for primary thermal vents to bypass the heavily armored blast doors. You are scanning the wrong vector. Delta violently spun around. Sitting casually on the edge of the roof, his legs dangling over the side of the skyscraper, was Madara Uchiha. He was wearing his legendary crimson combat armor, but it had been aggressively accessorized. A crisp, dark red corporate tie was knotted perfectly around his neck, and a sleek syndicate earpiece rested in his ear. He was holding a freshly poured cup of coffee in a white styrofoam cup. Who the hell are you? Delta demanded, her eyes narrowing as she scanned his biological signature. An Edo Tensei? A reanimated fossil acting as a security guard? Madara took a slow sip of his coffee. The rain did not seem to touch him. An invisible, localized layer of chakra repelled the water perfectly. I am the director of terrestrial security, Madara answered, his deep voice carrying a terrifying, relaxed amusement. And you are attempting an unauthorized breach of syndicate intellectual property. Do you possess a visitor's badge? I possess a destructive beam that's going to vaporize your head, Delta snarled. Her cybernetic eyes flared a blinding, radioactive yellow. She fired her signature destructive beam, a terrifying laser of condensed energy that negated all regenerative abilities and reduced biological matter to ash on a cellular level. Madara didn't even drop his coffee. Fwoosh. A massive, ethereal blue ribcage erupted around him. It was the Susanoo, but it had been optimized. The chakra construct was not jagged or wild. It was mathematically flawless, condensed into a high-density, localized shield that perfectly absorbed the kinetic and thermal impact of Delta's beam. The laser hit the blue ribs and scattered harmlessly into the stormy sky. Delta's eyes widened. What? That beam destroys cellular regeneration. It should have pierced that construct. My Susanoo is not a biological cell, Madara explained smoothly, standing up and tossing the empty coffee cup into a nearby, perfectly sanitized trash receptacle. It is pure, corporate-funded energy. And as per Section 8 of the Syndicate Security Mandate, I am legally authorized to utilize lethal force against hostile corporate espionage. Madara's Rinnegan activated, glowing violently in the dark. He didn't summon the perfect Susanoo. He didn't want to damage the roof of his employer's building. CFO Kakuzu would deduct the repair costs from his paycheck. Instead, he utilized raw, optimized taijutsu. Madara vanished. Before Delta's cybernetic receptors could even register the movement, Madara was standing directly in front of her. He delivered a localized, chakra-enhanced palm strike directly to the center of her chest. The kinetic force was completely devastating. The blow didn't send her flying. That would be inefficient. It localized the trauma entirely within her cybernetic chassis, shattering her internal power core and permanently severing her motor functions in a single, surgical strike. Delta gasped, her body locking up completely as sparks violently erupted from her joints. She collapsed to the wet titanium roof, completely paralyzed. Your cybernetics are impressive, but your combat algorithm is highly predictable, Madara critiqued, looking down at her. You rely entirely on raw output. You possess no finesse. You are an inferior product. From the shadows of the roof access stairwell, the heavy, squeaky footsteps of the warlord of Greece echoed in the rain. Naruto Uzumaki walked out onto the roof. He wore his black warlord tier Eva suit and his white paper hat. He held his hands folded behind his back, his unblinking blue eyes staring down at the paralyzed Kara executive. Excellent work, Director Madara, Naruto deadpanned, his squeaky voice cutting cleanly through the storm. Your localized threat neutralization remains within acceptable liability parameters. She is an android, CEO, Madara reported, stepping aside. Her neural network is backed up to a localized drone currently hiding in her cranial cavity. Delta's cybernetic eyes flickered wildly. You monsters, Jigen will slaughter you. Kara Ventures will burn your supply lines to ash. Naruto pulled a digital tablet from his pocket. Kara Ventures is a fundamentally flawed business model, Naruto diagnosed. You attempt to sell evolution to a demographic that simply wants convenience. Furthermore, you utilize proprietary cybernetic patents that are unregistered on the multiversal stock exchange. Naruto tapped his lapel microphone. Chief of R&D Plankton, Naruto commanded. I'm on the line, boss, Plankton cackled over the comms. I am shipping a hostile cybernetic acid down the primary pneumatic tube, Naruto stated softly. Extract her memory core. Reverse engineer her ocular lasers. I want them integrated into the deep fryer heating coils by Monday. Ooh, automated laser searing. The profit margins will skyrocket, Plankton cheered. Madara effortlessly reached down, gripped the small, spider-like backup drone hiding in Delta's neck, and ripped it out, permanently disabling her connection to the Kara mainframe. He tossed the paralyzed android body over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Naruto looked up into the stormy sky, his artificial density completely unaffected by the elements. Jigen operates from a hidden dimensional node, Naruto calculated. He intends to act as a hostile competitor. The market does not tolerate competition. Naruto adjusted his red tie. Prepare the Leviathan Armada, the warlord of Greece commanded. We are going to execute a hostile takeover of Kara Ventures. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.